I paid for my parents' retirement home, now they want to sell it, and move in with me. A 35-year-old guy, and a few years back I bought a retirement home for my parents who are now 67 and 69. They didn't have much saved up, and even though they managed on very little, I wanted them to have a safe, comfortable space of their own. The home I got them was a cozy little bungalow about an hour from where I live. Just close enough for me to visit but far enough for all of us to have our own space. It felt like a good balance. At first everything seemed great. They were grateful, loved the house, and even settled in pretty quickly. They'd had this low-key life forever. My dad worked simple jobs and my mom managed things at home, but there was never much left over for savings or retirement. They'd always hinted that they expected I'd help them out down the line. So getting them that house gave me peace of mind. It was a real relief to feel like I could support them without totally disrupting my own life. Since I live close by, I've been visiting about once a month, sometimes more if they need help with anything around the house. It's usually for things like minor repairs or running errands, stuff that makes their lives easier without putting too much strain on me. I have a solid job and I've been financially stable since my early 20s, so I didn't mind spending time or money here and there to keep them comfortable. I also have a partner, Ryan, who's big on privacy and boundaries. Ryan's great and he's been supportive of the help I give my parents. Though he's always hinted he's concerned about things going too far. He's the type who likes having his own space and values his independence. Something we've always agreed on and kept as a priority in our relationship. But recently, things started shifting with my parents. It was small stuff at first. My mom would casually mention how big my house was. Even though she'd always told me how much she loved her own place. She'd comment on how nice it would be to be closer to family or how convenient it was for us to be only an hour away. At first, I didn't think much of it. I figured they were just making conversation. Maybe they were a little lonely out there, but I thought they'd adapted to the quieter life. Then, during one visit, my mom dropped a surprising line mentioning that they'd been thinking about selling the house. She said it so casually, as if she was just sharing an idea that had popped into her head. She didn't go into any details, so I didn't take it too seriously, but a couple of weeks later my dad brought it up again. This time, it wasn't just a passing thought. He hinted that they might sell the place, use the money, and move in with me, saying they'd only stay temporarily until they figured out the next phase of their lives. The word temporarily stuck with me. From what they were saying, it didn't sound temporary at all. I felt this sinking feeling as I realized they weren't joking. They actually expected me to be okay with them moving in with me and Ryan, but selling the house? That was a whole different level. If they sold it, they wouldn't have any way to get back into a place of their own, not at their age and with their limited resources. They'd be dependent on me entirely, and that didn't sit right with me. I tried to let it slide for the moment, hoping that maybe they'd drop the idea on their own. But the more they talked, the clearer it became that they thought this was a done deal or close to it. My parents had this expectation that as family, I'd be there for them however they needed, no matter what. I hadn't really prepared for this level of support though. I thought the retirement house would be enough and they'd be set. After that conversation, I brought it up to Ryan. He was clearly concerned and it was hard to blame him. He's always been good about giving me space to help my parents, but he also made it clear from the beginning that he wasn't comfortable with any arrangement that would disrupt our own lives. He was supportive, but cautious, mentioning how this kind of thing could put strain on our relationship. I could tell he wasn't thrilled, and honestly, neither was I. The worst part was that my parents were acting like this was a normal next step. Something any son would do for his aging parents. There was this assumption that I'd go along with whatever they needed without question. I realized then that I needed to figure out my own stance, not just for myself, but for Ryan too. We both valued our space and privacy, and letting my parents move in would throw all of that out the window. Feeling more cornered than ever, I decided to post on Reddit to see if anyone else had dealt with something similar. I didn't know what to expect, but I hoped to get some advice or at least hear from people who'd been through something like this. I laid it all out, how I bought the house, the monthly visits, the subtle hints that became not so subtle, and now this full-on plan to sell the place and move in with me. It felt good to put it into words, even if just to vent. I haven't told my parents how I feel yet, but I know I'll have to soon.